pretty simple, guys. That's why I'm fronting up. There's no challenge to Sussan. I support Sussan. Tried to do this in good faith. And here we are. I think we can win an election. I mean, Labor is doing a terrible job on key issues like energy. Energy prices have gone up 24%, or electricity's gone up 24% in the last 12 months. Immigration, as I said, is out of control. Not enough houses are being built. People are feeling the pressure in the cities. I want to be able to speak up on issues that I care about. And in order to uphold the principle of shadow cabinet solidarity, I had to step back.
Has Hastie's decision to leave damaged Sussan Ley's leadership?
No, that's not my assessment. My assessment is Sussan has the strong and overwhelming support of the party room. Andrew himself made clear in his statement that he supports Sussan's leadership, and this is not about leadership. This is about his deeply held, sincere convictions, and he's a person of integrity. He didn't want to stay on Sussan's front bench if he wasn't able to support those positions, and he's choosing the freedom of the backbench, which every Liberal's entitled to.
Many governments have become reluctant to wind back programs because it's not popular to take something away from voters. But ultimately, the fiscal reality of paying for it must be confronted.
Bloody hell, mates, let's not muck around here. The Liberal Party is circling the drain, and Sussan Ley is the captain of the ship steering straight into the rocks. Anyone who reckons there's still glimmers of hope left in her leadership must have been knocking back too many flat white spike with delusion, because the writing's on the wall, bold, spray-painted, and flashing neon lights. The coalition's polling is tanking harder than a schooner on a Friday arvo. One Nation is climbing like a roux on steroids, and Labor's sitting back with popcorn watching the circus burn. And here's the kicker. It's not just politics as usual. It's the kind of collapse you can smell a mile away. The kind that tells you Australia's heading for one of the biggest political shake-ups we've seen since bloody Whitlam got the boot. Before we RIP apart this Sussan Ley meltdown, where the Liberals implode, One Nation steals the show, and the polls look like a funeral notice. Smash that like button like you're wiping the Liberal Party off the map. Subscribe if you're sick of watching this political clown show drag on. And grab the Who Voted for This shirt, links in the description. Now, let me paint you the scene, because you've got to feel it to believe it. We're not talking about little bumps in the road or a tough news cycle. Nah, this is a full-blown collapse in confidence, the type of implosion that makes you think the Liberals would have been better off checking a dartboard at their local RSL and picking a random punter to run the joint. Poll after poll shows Sussan Ley's approval rating sinking like a lead balloon, sitting at a net -20. That's not just bad, that's catastrophic. You could slap her name on a sausage sizzle fundraiser at Bunnings, and she'd still lose to the Onions. The whole vibe is toxic. The faithful are deserting. And in the shadows, One Nation is laughing its head off, watching their numbers jump to 11, 12, even 13% in some polls, outpacing the bloody Greens. And here's where it gets juicy. Because the real drama isn't just Ley's unpopularity. It's the fact that the Liberal Party is eating itself alive from the inside, tearing strips off each other like seagulls fighting over a hot chip. Andrew Hastie steps back from the front bench, says he's not challenging Ley, but still wants to speak freely. Translation. He's sharpening the knife, but doesn't want to look like the bloke holding it just yet. You've got James Patterson doing the usual loyalty spiel, swearing up and down there's no challenge coming. But come on, Aussies aren't mugs. We've seen this rodeo before. Every time a leader's got the full support of the party room, you can bet your last Tim Tam they'll be gone within the year. Ley's not just wobbling. She's hanging on by a fingernail, and even that nail's cracked. And yet, in the middle of this chaos, Sky News types talk about glimmers of hope. They cling to this one speech Ley gave to the Committee for Economic Development, rattling on about fiscal discipline and income taxes. Oh, fantastic. A bit of recycled neoliberal waffle about belt tightening. The kind of dry economic spiel that makes most Aussies' eyes glaze over quicker than a meat pie cooling on the bench. You can call it a glimmer if you want, but to me, it looks more like the flickering light bulb in a dodgy servo toilet. A sign things are about to go completely dark. And here's the thing nobody in the Liberal camp wants to admit. One Nation is eating their lunch. The party that used to pride itself on being the voice of battlers, tradies, families worried about mortgages and rising bills, is now so tangled up chasing the inner city teal vote and sucking up to green left nonsense that the working class base has bolted. One Nation's Pauline Hanson, for all her flaws and fiery rants, is connecting with Aussies who reckon the system's stitched up. The pollies are out of touch, and the big parties have sold them out. And they're not wrong. Look at energy prices, up 24% in 12 months. Immigration? Out of control. Housing? Forget it. Young Aussies can't buy a house unless they flog a kidney on the black market. And what's the Liberal Party doing about it? Squabbling, backstabbing, and parroting Labor light policies that nobody believes in. The kicker is Ley herself. She didn't just inherit a poison chalice, she poured the poison in herself, stacked her shadow cabinet with loyalists, froze out rivals like Hastie, cut deals that made her look like a high school queen bee rather than a serious leader. Instead of building a strong team, she built a clique. And now it's falling apart. When Hastie wanted to step beyond national security and tackle economic portfolios, the stuff Aussies actually care about, she boxed him in, clipped his wings, and then had the gall to sideline him on migration discussions. Migration. The single hottest issue in the country right now, the one topic where the Liberals could have hammered Labor into the ground. And she couldn't even handle that. No wonder he walked. And don't even get me started on the Jacinta Price fiasco. 10 bloody days, Ley left her twisting in the wind after a harmless statement about Indian migrant voting patterns. 10 days of dithering because she didn't have the spine to stand by her own people. And why? Because she's petrified of losing migrant-heavy electorates and inner-city teal seats. But in chasing those, she's driving the core Liberal base into the arms of one nation. It's political suicide, death by 1,000 cuts, and she's too busy trying to look like a centrist savior to notice she's bleeding out. Now, here's the part that'll really rattle the cage. The polls aren't lying. This isn't just a rough patch. We're looking at the Liberals hitting historically low primary votes, while One Nation doubles its support since the last election. At 13%, One Nation isn't just a fringe protest party anymore. They're a kingmaker. They're overtaking the Greens, and if the momentum keeps rolling, they could hold the balance of power in a hung parliament. Imagine that, Pauline Hanson pulling the strings in Canberra while Ley watches her empire crumble. Sounds insane, right? But so did Trump in 2015. And look how that turned out. And here's the lesson the Liberals refuse to learn. Every time they try to play it safe, to drift back to the middle, to mimic Labor on climate, migration, or spending, they get smashed. Voters don't want diet Labor. They either want the real thing or a fiery alternative that speaks to their frustrations. That's why Reform UK trounced the Tories in Britain. That's why Trump turned the Republican Party upside down. And that's why One Nation's rising here in Australia while Ley's leadership sinks. Because she's not giving anyone a reason to believe she's different. She's not giving battlers a reason to think she's got their back. She's giving them weasel words, watered down promises, and the vibe of someone more worried about her party room enemies than about the country. Now, don't get me wrong, Ley's got a handful of moments where she flashes competence. That speech on fiscal discipline? Sure, it ticked some boxes. Talking about winding back government programs, leaning less on income taxes, yeah, it's the kind of stuff old school Liberals love. But it's crumbs, mates. Crumbs. And you can't build a revival on crumbs when the whole house is collapsing. Voters want clarity, passion, a leader who says, here's where we're going, here's how we'll fix the mess, and bugger the critics. Ley ain't that leader. She's tentative, cautious, looking over her shoulder, and it reeks of weakness. Australians can smell weakness a mile away. And while she dithers, the problems pile up. 2 million more people projected under Labor's immigration intake. That's 2 million more needing houses, hospitals, schools, roads. And yet we can't even build enough homes for the people already here. Energy targets for 2035 and 2050 that most Aussies don't believe are achievable. Net zero promises that sound like fantasy while families can't afford to turn on the heater. And instead of ripping into Labor for this insanity, Ley clings to the same policies because she's scared of losing the climate-conscious teals. It's cowardice dressed up as strategy. And the voters know it. Here's the brutal truth. The Liberal Party under Ley is chasing votes it will never win, while abandoning the votes it desperately needs. Inner-city teal types will never embrace the Liberals no matter how hard they pander. Migrant-heavy electorates are shifting away regardless of token gestures. Meanwhile, the suburbs, the regions, the battlers who built the Liberal base, they're flocking to One Nation because Hanson, for all her flaws, is at least saying what they're thinking. And until the Liberals face that reality, they're toast. And that's why this story isn't just about Sussan Ley's leadership. It's about the death spiral of the Liberal Party itself. A party too scared to go right, too weak to go left, and too clueless to stand for anything in between. If they don't wake up, if they don't ditch the Labor-light garbage and reclaim a real conservative identity, they'll be wiped out. And when that happens, don't be surprised if One Nation steps into the vacuum and becomes the new power broker in Australian politics. So yeah, you can call it glimmers of hope if you want, but I'll call it what it is, the final sparks before the flame goes out. Sussan Ley's leadership isn't a light at the end of the tunnel. It's the glow of a dumpster fire and it's only getting hotter. And look, if you've made it this far, do us a favor. Smash that like button harder than Ley smashed her own party's chances. Subscribe so you don't miss the next political brawl, because trust me, this circus isn't ending anytime soon. And drop a comment. Who do you reckon's going to come out on top? Is it Ley clinging to the wreckage of the Liberals, or Hanson riding the wave straight into Canberra's halls of power? I know what side I'm on. And grab the Who Voted for This shirt links in the description.